Hey everyone, welcome to episode 56 of the Legal Paige podcast. This podcast episode is all about what you need to think about as a small business owner as states begin to reopen after the COVID season. As shelter-in-place orders begin to be lifted across the United States, it is really now more than ever time to start thinking about what that means for you as a small business owner. I cannot begin to tell you how many questions I've gotten, not only from local businesses here in my home state, but also through the Legal Paige community on Facebook and on Instagram. Things are, once again, you guys, changing very, very rapidly, and I know that there's a lot of confusion as to what you can and cannot do legally as a small business owner. And while I don't have all of the answers, especially since much of the new rules are very, very state dependent, I am here to help clarify and hopefully guide you to some resources to better serve as a starting point for what's going on in this new reopened world. You guys, your business and your everyday practices are likely going to look a bit different now that you can go back to work again. And COVID-19 is still an issue that you have to work around, but I am going to get to all of that and hopefully ease some of those thoughts and fears that you may have in this episode, my friends. So let's do it. You're listening to the Legal Paige podcast, where we chat about life and business with a legal twist. I'm Paige, attorney and photographer helping online businesses and creatives tackle their business dreams without breaking out in hives. No more legal mumbo jumbo. This podcast features simple, bite-sized advice that'll have you legally legit in no time. Are you ready? Let's get started. As a reminder, before we get into this episode, I am legally obligated to give my disclaimer. So I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. All legal information I talk about on this episode is intended for the masses and a large variety of different businesses. I am only your attorney when you hire me and we sign an engagement letter for me to work specifically on your legal issues. Please feel free to seek out another attorney in your hometown if you need specific legal advice or contact me for more information. Alrighty, here's the episode, friends. Okay, let's just get started by your state is open, right? But what exactly does that mean? Can you open your business again? Are you allowed to start servicing clients? How many clients can you service at a time? Do you have to follow XYZ guidelines? While I would love to say that things have totally gone back to normal business-wise, that is definitely just not the case. Just because a state is quote unquote open does not mean that you as a business owner can begin working at full-blown capacity again and providing the services that you offer the exact same way that you were doing so, say, last spring and summer of 2019. The vast majority of states have followed the national guidance issued by the CDC, WHO, and the White House in instilling reopening plans that involve multiple phases of reopening. So each state governor has decided how, when, and where many phases are going to occur. So your ability to reopen your small business will depend entirely on your local, state, and county guidelines. Most states have been evaluating things in statistic format, such as the number of new COVID-19 cases, the number of COVID-19 deaths, inventory of medical supplies like in your county, at various hospitals, PPE, in comparisons between all three of those things that I just talked about. So state officials are using these statistics to determine when to move into that new next phase of reopening. So most states are doing a phased reopening like I talk about. There's a phase 1, and then a phase 2, and then a phase 3. I haven't heard of anything more than that, though I know all of these directives by state governors can be changed pursuant to a subsequent directive or order by the state governor. But they will employ these phase plans for the entire state. So your governor is going to issue these from the governor's office. And then what usually happens is each county, so your local government, has the option to put their own plans in place as well if they want to modify or amend the governor's bigger directive. These are really important to consider, these county, changes or amendments to the phased reopening of businesses in their specific county, because it can place additional restrictions on your business that you may need to keep in mind if your business spans kind of multiple counties. Say if you're providing wedding and event services, not only in your county, but in various counties throughout the state, you are going to want to keep all of those county regulations and procedures in mind as this phase reopening is happening. So let me give you an example here. In my home state and county. So in Montana, we have a phased 3-part reopening of the state. Phase 1 is so-and-so businesses can open. Here are the protocols for those businesses and all of these other businesses like gyms and, large gatherings, places of gathering that have more than 10 people, yada, yada. Those can't reopen in phase 1. And then in phase 2, they will, ease restrictions a little bit for like bars and restaurants and retail locations that were allowed to reopen in phase 1 at say like 25% capacity. Those go up to like 50 or 75% capacity. And then they will allow places of assembly like wedding venues to open in Montana. But the phase 2 still restricts gatherings to 50 people or less. So that's going to look a lot different on weddings and events this summer. And then phase 3 is just there's no restrictions. Everybody can open. It's pretty much like sort of back to normal. So when we were looking at the governor's directive, then I was talking with venues in our home state. And after the governor's directive, then my home county came together, and the health department worked with the county to issue even further guidance and protocol regarding certain businesses allowed to do certain things. Actually, like hair salons and personal services like nail techs, massage therapists were allowed to reopen in phase 1 under the state directive. But our county said that there was still, the possibility of massive community spread. And so they restricted those type of personal service businesses to not reopen in phase 1, and they had to wait until phase 2. And then they gave like more guidance, and they have like these documents and health protocols, and they have to do all of these different things and sign off on it as business owners for like bars and restaurants and retail locations to be able to reopen in phase 1. So that is kind of what I'm talking about here. The state is going to issue their big directive on how they're reopening, if there's a phased approach, if there's not a phased approach, what it's going to look like, what are your safety protocols, and what are your social distancing guidelines that you have to be aware of. And then your county, where you are actually servicing clients, could also issue further guidelines that you need to consider. So the main thing here that I'm trying to tell you all is to carefully read all of the documents that your state provides and that your county provides in regards to reopening, and make sure that you understand what that means for your business and how that translates to your ability to provide your products or your services to your clients. The one thing I will say is your state governor's website is a great resource for all of the relevant reopening documents and information that you are going to need in order to communicate what you are doing as a business owner to all of your clients, and also ensure that you are taking the appropriate next steps related to what this phase reopening is going to look like. So, step 1, look at your state phased reopening guidelines. They usually have a document that has the official directive. Many states have issued subsequent, helpful step-by-step documents for various business owners and what it means, and they've bullet pointed things. I know that there are small business hotlines that will direct you to specific people in the governor's office that are servicing questions from only small businesses and not just random clients or customers or just people out, in the community. It's just for small businesses that are reopening. So try that hotline if you need any clarification on your state guidelines. And then the next step is to go to your county. Has your county issued any subsequent orders, directives, guidelines, protocols related to the phased reopening of your state? Okay. Step 1 and step 2, figure out what your state and county are saying. Now, step 3 is once you have all of that information, you need to communicate with your clients what this phase reopening means for your business. Okay. As always, you guys know that I'm a huge proponent of communication because it's really what we use in the legal world as evidence. Who said what to who, what contracts were signed where, what emails were sent when, who agreed to what, yada, yada. You see what I'm getting at? That's why I am consistently saying, oh my gosh, please just communicate with your clients. Don't just hop on a phone call and then think that's enough. And you got to get written documentation of everything. And this is super key for you to use as evidential proof that you've informed your clients on how your services are changing and how you are adapting to kind of this new post-COVID season. Once you know how the phased reopening affects your business plans and how it affects the ability to provide your clients with certain services, you need to make sure that you're proactive in communicating that specific protocol with your clients and what that means specifically for their existing contract with you. So many people in my sphere are wedding and event industry pros. They've signed contracts a year in advance or months in advance or years in advance for that matter. And so, of course, those documents, those contracts that your clients signed off on have nothing related to COVID-19 because you signed it a year ago and nobody knew this was going to happen. So as this, phased reopening happens in your state, you are now under new guidelines and protocols that weren't in effect when you signed the contract with your clients. So you have to now, you're required to give your clients notice that allows them to adjust or reschedule, their event or their gathering or their wedding if needed, or your services, right? You might have to adjust your services a bit. You might have to change pricing of your services a bit. I know this is a big issue for hair and makeup providers at weddings and events, because now you have to have all this PPE. You have to change kind of how you are actually touching the clients, masks, different things in cleaning your supplies and your makeup and hair products. So you have to be proactive here, and you have to cultivate that positive relationship with your clients via communication, because it gives you the opportunity to really come to this mutual agreement, resolution, an ideal path to complete your contract with them appropriately, effectively, and of course, to the best way possible that you can. I'm always telling business owners, you guys know my business philosophy is under-deliver on contracts. So, make sure that you are understating what you're going to do and then over-deliver on your actual services and how you as a business owner are doing X, Y, Z, going above and beyond what your contract says, going above and beyond what you've communicated with them via email about. Over-deliver. So you want to understate things in your contracts, and then you want to over-deliver in your services. And this is another time period where you really have to heed that advice. So you're going to have to initiate kind of new protocol. You're going to have to adjust things. You're going to have to say, okay, this is my policy. This is what I have to do to comply with local and state regulations surrounding safety protocols and social distancing guidelines. This is what I'm going to do. And then say, you over-deliver. You give them, 1 extra hour of coverage, or there's so many different things. You could give them a discount, maybe say that, your rescheduling policy is X. I could tack on a rescheduling fee, but I'm not going to because of COVID. That's what I mean by just continually over-deliver during this season. And I have been working, again, with multiple clients in Montana because I service specific one-on-one clients in Montana on how to effectively communicate with clients on a weekly or bi-weekly basis so that they know and understand that you are being as diligent as possible with your updates to the phased reopening of your state. And the reason that I say weekly or bi-weekly is because I don't want you to just think that sending like one email communication to your clients is enough. So for example, I worked with a venue owner here in Montana on the phased reopening of our state. Phase 1 allows for 10 or less people to come together in groups. So that means that they can have like small elopements now on their grounds, but they really need to be careful of actually opening up their place of assembly because venues are considered places of assembly and they're not supposed to be open until phase 2. But I called the governor's office and I got clarification on this. And they said that wedding venues on their property, because Montana has, large acreage venues, can host smaller elopements as long as it's less than 10 people. And then phase 2 is going to allow places of assembly, i.e. venues, to reopen, but you have to have 50 people or less. Thus, they have to communicate with their couples that they need to cut down their guest counts in phase 2 to 50 or less, and that includes all personnel and vendors involved too. Are you listening in and are concerned about working closely with people as your state starts opening back up? Do you have a wedding or event this summer that's going to have a bigger gathering of people than you're comfortable with? Now is the time to get a liability waiver ready for all of your clients to sign to ensure your business is legally legit and protected from any potential COVID-19 threats or claims. The Legal Paige created this simple document with you in mind, and it's now available in the Legal Paige shop. Just go to thelegalpage, PAIGE.com, and you can find it right there on the home page. And it says COVID-19 Release and Waiver of Liability. Again, you can grab that at thelegalpaige.com. And then the name of the game is, when will phase 3 happen? And this is really what the question is across the country. So phase 2 is usually, there's some limitation on the total amount of people that can gather. Sometimes it's 25, sometimes it's 50, sometimes it's 75 or 100. I haven't seen more than that. I'd be interested if there is more than that, just because that seems like a really, really large gathering that they don't want to occur in phase 2. And then what the state is going to look at, like I talked about all the statistics, the infection rate, the death rates, so on and so forth. If, there's enough PPE at various medical locations. And if all of that goes well and infection rates don't increase, we're on the downtick of the curve now, all about flattening the curve. They don't want the curve to rise again. That's something that they have considered with the 1918 massive pandemic that occurred in the world. And they're kind of looking at that as a guideline. And they're looking at various locations throughout the world and what happened when they just did kind of a full-blown reopening, no guidelines, it's a free-for-all, and how the curve exponentially went up versus the phase reopening where it's just more of like a slight bump of a curve and not like this huge, uptick. That is what everyone wants right now in the United States to ensure that we are combating COVID as best as we can moving forward without a vaccine in place, because we all know that that's not going to happen anytime soon. It could take till the end of 2020. It could take up to 12 months. It could take 2 years. So while, what I'm ultimately trying to say here is through the next, few months and the next wedding season and the fall season, we don't know when phase 3 is going to happen. And you need to tell your clients that you don't know, and neither does the state. So you got to give them options. They can host the event in phase 2 at less than, say, 50 people or whatever your state guidelines are, and they can take their chances. They can hope that maybe it gets to phase 3 by July or August, but it might not. The chances of that happening are probably pretty slim right now. And there's also the possibility that phase 3 could happen. It does not go well, and then they move back to phase 2 really quickly. That can also occur. Anything can happen. So, for events and weddings in the next 6 months or 12 months, you really need to ensure that you're updating your clients every week or bi-weekly on what's happening, what's the new protocol that came out, this is what you've researched, this is what you've talked to your home local health department about, And this is how you're moving forward as a vendor and service provider to them. And then you want to ensure that as you're communicating all of this to your clients, you need to make sure that they understand that they can't just like up and cancel or reschedule 1 week prior. That this is your protocol. This is what you need to ensure for rescheduling purposes. You are going to need to tell them that, say, instead of like your 30-day rescheduling or cancellation policy under your contract, you'll give them 2 weeks. So maybe 14 days before they need to make the final decision. Are they rescheduling or are they hosting their event as planned? Communicate that. Make sure it's written down and that they understand that. And that way, like 5 days before the wedding or 7 days before the wedding, they can't just up and cancel and ask for a full refund. That is not how it works. And I've seen this issue come up time and time again within the TLP community, and they have questions about it. So again, just make sure that you are following your business protocol and kind of what your business practices are surrounding rescheduling and cancellation. If you've modified any of that due to COVID, and continually tell your clients what you are doing during the phased reopening and that you are staying diligent with how things are rapidly changing from day to day regarding the safety guidelines and kind of social distancing protocol that you need to keep in mind as a service provider. It's really going to look something like this. You want to tell them what you know, that you're able to work, that you have to keep social distancing guidelines in place. You're going to follow all local and state rules surrounding working as a service provider right now, that all of your jobs, for any of you tuning in, most of your jobs can be done with all of these guidelines in mind. But you will want to think about and communicate with your clients on what that new service is going to look like compared to what you could do in the past and what they probably expected when they signed that contract months or a year ago. So that is really the name of the game here. Communicate, 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 and don't just do it once, do it multiple times. Make sure you're over-delivering on your communication right now with your clients. Legal things to think about and why you may need them is kind of the biggie that I'm sure you're all waiting for through my lens and my eyes, my expertise with the legal stuff. Many people have asked me about COVID-related clauses in contracts and releases in case someone gets sick or, God forbid, you're asymptomatic and then somehow you spread it to people while you're working, right? That's what we're all kind of fearful of right now, and definitely something that you're going to be thinking about for the next few months as you step out and get kind of in closer contact with people than, of course, you were in quarantine. First off, there's an issue with proof that you actually did cause the COVID infection in X person, or that you even contributed to it. No one can for sure say that they contracted the virus through this person or through your company or through your person that you had as an assistant. You know, it could have been you, but it also could have been picked up at a grocery store from the person who is now infected that they went to prior to, say, the wedding, or the gas station that they pumped their gas at, or the card section at Target that they went to pick up a wedding card at. Like, they could have also picked it up at the person actually there as a guest at the wedding, at the reception table. No one knows for sure. And that evidential proof factor is something I wanted to just chat with you all briefly about. No one knows. But as a business owner, you never really want to put yourself in a position that could make you potentially liable for a COVID infection or someone just coming after you for being involved in some way. Most lawyers are saying, okay, it's going to be hard to even provide that evidential proof. I don't think their claim would hold up in court. And what I'm saying is I don't even want them to get to the point of filing a claim, filing a lawsuit. I don't even want them to think about that. You shouldn't be liable under any circumstance. And this is why liability waivers are beyond important to consider. And I know tons of businesses are rolling these out right now. So we here at the Legal Page have created a simple release form just for you, just for COVID-19 particular purposes. So people in the event industry have been really wanting to kind of double cover themselves and ensure they are protected. Like I said, it's going to be hard to provide proof that, say, you were asymptomatic or any of your contractors that came to you that worked with you while providing services were asymptomatic and gave COVID, maybe you got the infection at a wedding too. Maybe another vendor at the wedding came and somehow got infected, or a guest came. There's so many possibilities. And I am just, as a lawyer, I'm like always looking at risks and liability assessments for the future. And I'm saying, I don't want you pulled in as a defendant in any circumstance related to COVID-19 infections, deaths, wrongful death claims. Oh my gosh, I am trying to protect you from all of that. So this liability waiver will do literally that. It essentially has your clients sign off on their knowledge of the risk of COVID-19. They're aware that it's happening, that it's out there. No one knows how you get it. You could get it from being asymptomatic. They're bringing people together. There's a gathering that increases the chances of people getting it, and that they assume that risk and that you will be released and you will be held harmless and not liable under any circumstance. And they waive any and all potential rights to sue you. That's what release waivers are. It releases you from any liability, and they understand that they are signing off on those rights to do so. So it's a really simple, 1.5 page document. It's a waiver. It can be used as an additional way to notify your clients of that risk associated with performing services at this time, like I said, due to the unknown nature of contracting COVID-19. Remember, again, when you have it in writing, it sets the tone at that beginning of your relationship moving forward in this post-COVID season, that you are aware of the risks. You are going to follow certain protocols, but you cannot control what is happening with this virus right now. Nobody knows. And I highly suggest using this release and waiver of liability for any type of wedding or larger events, because gatherings of people increase infection rates. As we all know, hence shelter in place and stay at home orders. That's why we all did them, to reduce that. So we at the Legal Page have created 3 options of waivers. One for single service providers like salon owners, hairstylists, makeup artists that just need their one client that they're servicing to sign the waiver on behalf of themselves. We've also created a waiver for family photographers who are now going to be, in closer contact with families, with kids that you can't really control. They could come up to you. You might have to go chase them. There's so many possibilities here. And you're going to, of course, try to keep the 6 feet, physical distancing in check, but, things can happen. So for family photographers, you would have a legal parent or guardian sign off on behalf of everyone who will be at the session. And then you want to list all of the minors that will be involved at the session too, that they are signing the release and waiver of liability on behalf of all of them. And then the big one that people have been using and purchasing and needing are the one for wedding and event pros. So there's a waiver just for you, and it will have the couple sign on behalf of themselves and all of their guests. And then they would be, kind of the third-party intermediary that would have to indemnify you for any third-party claims of guests at the event. So these are all customizable template documents. They, like I said, you would download it. It's all of our Legal Page contract templates, clause templates, and forms like this come in Word format, docx, and doc regular format. So old Word version, new Word version. The old one uploads really nicely to Google Docs if you don't have Microsoft Word on your desktop. And then it also comes in PDF document as well that you can just copy and paste if that's easier for you to see and really analyze and use. All of these are pretty straightforward release and waivers of liability. You may need to modify them a bit to fit your specific needs and business practices related to opening up post-COVID, and you can just add those in very, very easily in the template. And don't forget, this is a single template contract that will be used in addition to your full contract. It's intended to be used on its own. It's intended to be used after your clients have already signed your existing contract and you're getting ready for this service you're providing them in the next few weeks or in the next few months. They're going to sign this document separately. So it's a second contract. You're going to have your client contract, and then you're going to have this release and waiver of liability document that they need to sign. If you're starting to book new clients for 2020 and 2021 and are a bit leery on what COVID-19 is going to look like this fall or next spring or even next summer, you are going to want to hit a little pressure release valve for your clients that ensures that they can sign on to book with you, but that they can reschedule with you without hassle should that situation come up. And you guys, have a clause just for that. I created the COVID-19 postponement and cancellation clause that you can copy and paste into your existing contract for client situations like this that will essentially cover all COVID-19 related rescheduling issues. This clause is simple, straightforward, and to the point, so there are no questions or issues for you or your clients down the road. We all know how challenging it's been to reschedule or cancel during the last 2 months, so let's make it easier next time around, you guys. Get your copy and paste COVID-19 clause now at thelegalpaige.com. That's thelegalpaige.com. You can find it on the homepage and it says COVID-19 postponement and cancellation clause. The last legal thing I wanted to touch on is a COVID-19 clause to add into new contracts that your clients would sign. So this is for people who are booking clients right now in the wake of post-COVID season. This is something that you wedding and event pros are going to definitely want to consider adding into your new contracts because clients will probably ask for this. And this is essentially why we here at The Legal Paige created it, is we had tons of people in the TLP community asking for a clause like this. And because coronavirus is a known clause, quote unquote, it's unlikely to fall under force majeure now because it's not unforeseeable, unpredictable. It is known. So force majeure is kind of out the window for new contract and new clients that sign on to work with you. Moreover, as government orders start getting lifted, like I talked about, phased reopenings, clients are now left having to make the decision whether to continue to host their wedding and event with this continuance of a health risk to their guests. And it's going to obviously vary greatly depending on the location of the event and the ability for people to travel, because travel has been a big issue. It's best to explicitly lay out what your business policies are regarding COVID-19 reschedulings and the number of times that you're going to allow them to reschedule with or without a fee, and the refundability or non-refundability of the retainer for new clients that are signing on with you. Because lots of people are like, okay, I want to book you as a photographer, but what happens if COVID continues to happen and I have to cancel my wedding, February 2021? They want to know, what's your policy on that? Do they get a full refund? Are they allowed to reschedule without a fee? How many times can they do that? And this clause features the ability to reschedule with a proper X amount of days, that it allows them to reschedule without a fee for, say, X amount of months. So they can reschedule for 12 months after the original wedding date that they signed on to in the contract. And that it's the responsibility of the client to work with your business to find a new rescheduled date available on your calendar. This has been a biggie because people are just like stating, well, you're not available on my new date that I rescheduled, but they didn't even work with the service provider to try to come up with a mutually agreeable date. So that is in the COVID-19 clause. And then also what's in there is the potential increase in pricing for like prime dates. So people are booking for, fall, winter, spring of 2020, 2021. But many wedding and event pros are concerned about those prime Saturday dates in 2021. And now that they've had this significant, impact to their finances in 2020, they need to be really careful that they can still book prime Saturdays in 2021 at their increased pricing of 2021. You don't just want to move all of your weddings from 2020 to Saturdays in 2021, and then you're just, your bottom line of finances is impacted not only for this year, but for next year as well. So depending on your business practices there, I know some people like myself I am not as busy as a photographer. And so I'm willing to move to prime Saturdays that I'm available and I'm already booked for like 5 Saturdays for weddings next year in 2021. But this clause ensures that if they book with you now, that they can reschedule, but they got to work with you. They got to make sure that you can, shoot their wedding, and then you can decide your business practices for like prime dates in 2021. And then ultimately at the end of the clause, it states, your clients are going to forfeit the retainer in the event of pure cancellation. And I call this cancellation on your client's own volition. Then your cancellation and rescheduling clause would be triggered, and the COVID-19 cancellation and rescheduling clause would not be impacted. So ultimately, this clause trumps the force majeure clause, the cancellation clause, and the rescheduling clause for COVID-19 related postponements and cancellations only. I also personally worked with 5+ industry pros to draft this template clause. I had them review it. They went through it and made sure that it made sense to add into their existing contracts, gave me lots of feedback. We made sure to add that in. And it includes everything you'll need to be protected when clients need to reschedule or cancel due to COVID. Remember, this is a clause that you would probably need to negotiate with your clients about. It's going to change from each client to each client, depending on the situation, and you're going to modify it so your clients feel good and secure about booking you. That's kind of the name of the game. This clause is only needed in contracts where your clients want more specificity surrounding COVID-19 reschedulings and cancellations. People are like, do I need to add this into every contract? Paige, why don't you have this in regular template contracts? And I'm like, well, it doesn't apply to everyone. And I'm not going to put this clause into all of my wedding template contracts because it's not supposed to be in a template contract. It only has bearing on clients that really want you to help them. You can use your general cancellation and rescheduling policies if you want. This is just if you want to modify it and change it a little bit, tweak it, and also have it super, super specific and laid out. So there's no confusion down the road what your COVID-19 rescheduling and cancellation policy are. And you guys, that is it. I hope this episode was helpful for you as states start reopening and you start crawling out of your quarantine state of mind and start easing back into a somewhat normal service provider. I know this next phase of your business is going to be a bit challenging, but remember, we're all in it together. Literally, we are. Everyone's doing the same thing right now, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. Don't dive into those, I like to call them community forum rabbit holes where people are telling you, you have to do X and you have to do Y. That's not true. No one knows the right answer to all of this. COVID-19 has never happened before like this. It is all unknown and everyone is simply trying to do the best they can. And that's what I wanted to relay to you in this episode. Just do your due diligence, do the best you can as a service provider for your clients. And if I can provide you with any helpful insight and big takeaway, it's this. Stay up to date with your phased reopening of your state and county, including all regulations related to how you should operate your business with specific safety protocols and distancing guidelines in place. 2, continually communicate with your clients via email, so it's in written format like I talked about. And don't think that one blanket email is enough because you need to be proactive each time something needs to be addressed or something changes related to the phased reopening. And 3, consider adding in a few things to your legal toolkit as a small business owner, such as a COVID-19 postponement and cancellation clause to your existing contracts that new clients who book with you will sign. And then also consider having existing clients sign a release and waiver of liability short document before you provide them with services over the next few months so you keep your business safe from any potential claims or lawsuits. You guys, I wish you all the best in your business this spring and summer. I know it's going to be different, but we are all in it together and we are all going to get through this time. I truly, truly believe that. Please know I'm here for you if you need anything, and just let me know by hopping into the Legal Paige community on Facebook. You can just type that into the search bar, and I am there pretty much every single day to answer any questions you may have and to continue this conversation on. That's it, you guys. I will be here same time, same place in 2 weeks from today. Bye now. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Legal Paige podcast. See, I told you being legally legit isn't so scary. Be sure to visit thelegalpage.com for all show notes. And it would be super awesome if you could head over to iTunes and leave a review. Last but not least, don't forget to join my free Facebook group for unlimited legal and biz Q&A. Chat soon, Legal Pagers.